So today we are gonna read chapter 2, Forgetting of Foreign Words. The ordinary vocabulary of our own language seems to be protected against forgetting within the limits of normal function, but it is quite different with words from a foreign language. The tendency to forget such words extends to all parts of speech, in fact, depending on our own general state and the degree of fatigue. The first manifestation of functional disturbance evinces itself in the irregularity of our control over foreign vocabulary. In a series of cases, this forgetting follows the same mechanism as the one revealed in the example Signorelli. As a demonstration of this, I shall report a single analysis, characterized however by valuable features concerning the forgetting of a word, not a noun, from a Latin quotation. Before proceeding, allow me to give a full and clear account of this little episode. Last summer, while journeying on my vacation, I renewed the acquaintance of a young man of academic education who, as I soon noticed, was conversant with some of my works. In our conversation, we drifted, I no longer remember how, to the social position of the race to which we both belonged. He, being ambitious, bemoaned the fact that his generation, as he expressed it, was destined to grow crippled, that it was prevented from developing its talents and from gratifying its desires. He concluded his passionately felt speech with the familiar verse from Virgil's Exordiare, in which the unhappy Dido leaves her vengeance upon Aeneas to posterity. Instead of concluded, I should have said wished to conclude, for he could not bring the quotation to an end, and attempted to conceal the open gap in his memory by transposing the words. He finally became piqued and said, "Please don't make such a mocking face, as if you were glorying over my embarrassment, but help me. There is something missing in this verse. How does it read in its complete form?" With pleasure I answered, and cited it correctly: "Extoriare alicis nostris ex ossibus ultor." "It is too stupid to forget such a word," he said. "By the way, I understand you claim that forgetting is not without its reasons. I should be very curious to find out how I came to forget this indefinite pronoun aliquis." I gladly accepted the challenge, as I hoped to get an addition to my collection, and said, "We can easily do this, but I must ask you to tell me frankly and without any criticism everything that occurs to your mind after you focus your attention, without any particular intention, on the forgotten word." "Very well. The ridiculous idea comes to me to divide the word in the following way: and leakers." "What does that mean?" "I don't know." "What else does that recall to you?" "The thought goes on the religious liquidity fluid." "Does that mean anything to you?" "No, not by a long shot." "Just go ahead." "I now think," he said, laughing sarcastically, "of Simon of Trent, whose relics I saw 2 years ago in a church in Trent. I think of the old accusation which has been brought against the Jews again, and of the work of Clean Paul, who sees in these supposed sacrifices reincarnations, or rivals, so to speak, of the Saviour. This stream of thoughts has some connection with the theme which we discussed before the Latin word escaped you. You're right. I now think of an article in an Italian journal which I have recently read. I believe it was entitled 'What St. Augustine Said Concerning Women.' What can you do with this?" I waited. "Now I think of something which surely has no connection with the theme." "Oh, please abstain from all criticism, and I know I recall a handsome old gentleman whom I met on my journey last week. He was really an original type. He looked like a big bird of prey. His name, if you care to know, is Benedict. Well, at least you give a grouping of saints and church fathers: Saint Simon, Saint Augustine, and Saint Benedict. I believe that there was a church father named Origenes. Three of these, moreover, are Christian names like Paul and in the name of Clean Paul. Now I think of Saint Januarius and his blood miracle. I find that his thoughts are running mechanically. Just to stop a moment, both Saint Januarius and Saint Augustine have something to do with the calendar. Will you recall to me the blood miracle? Don't you know about it? The blood of Saint Januarius is preserved in a phial in a church in Naples, and on a certain holiday a miracle takes place, causing it to liquefy. The people think a great deal of this miracle and become very excited if the liquefying process is retarded, as happened once during the French occupation. The general in the command, or Garibaldi, if I am not mistaken, then took the priest aside and with a very significant gesture pointed out to him the soldiers arrayed without, and expressed his hope that the miracle would soon take place, and it actually took place. Well, what else comes to your mind? Why do you hesitate? Something really occurred to me, but it's too intimate a matter to impart. Besides, I see no connection and no necessity for telling it. I will take care of the connection. Of course, I cannot compel you to reveal what is disagreeable to you, but then you that she missed her courses. How could you guess such a thing? That was not very difficult. You prepared me for it long enough. Just think of the saints of the calendar, the liquefying of the blood on a certain day, the excitement if the event does not take place, and the distinct threat that the miracle must take place. Indeed, you have elaborated the miracle of Saint Januarius into a clever allusion to the courses of the woman. It was surely without my knowledge. And do you really believe that my inability to reproduce the word aliquis was due to this anxious expectation? That appears to me absolutely certain. Don't you recall dividing it into a liquis and the associations reliquis, liquidation, fluid? Shall I also add to this connection the fact that Saint Simon, to whom you got by of this reliquis, was sacrificed as a child? Please stop. I hope you do not take these thoughts if I really entertained them seriously. I will, however, confess to you that the lady is Italian and that I visited Naples in her company, but may not all this be coincidental? I must leave to your own judgment whether you can explain all these connections through the assumption of coincidence. I will tell you, however, that every similar case that you analyze will lead you to just such remarkable coincidences. I have more than one reason for valuing this little analysis, for which I am indebted to my travelling companion first, because in this case I was able to make use of source which is otherwise inaccessible to me. Most of the examples of psychic disturbances of daily life that I have here compiled I was obliged to take from observation of myself. I endeavored to evade the far richer material furnished me by patience, because I had to preclude the objection that the phenomena in question were only the result and manifestation of the neurosis. It was therefore of special value for my purpose to have a stranger free from a neurosis offer himself as a subject for such examination. This analysis is also important in other respects, in as much as it elucidates a case of word forgetting without substitutive recollection, and thus confirms the principle formulated above, namely, that the appearance or non-appearance of incorrect substitutive recollections does not constitute an essential distinction. But the principal value of the example aliquis lies in other of its distinctions from the case Signoroli. In the latter example, the reproduction of the name becomes disturbed through the after effects of a stream of thought which began shortly before and was interrupted, but whose content had no distinct relation to the new theme which contained the name singularly. Between the repression and the theme of the forgotten name there existed only the relation of temporal contiguity which reached the other in order that the two should be able to form a connection through an outer association. On the other hand, in the example Eliquis, one can note no trace of such an independent repressed theme which could occupy conscious thought immediately before and then re-echo as a disturbance. The disturbance of the reproduction proceeded here from the inner part of the theme touched upon, and was brought about by the fact that unconsciously a contradiction arose against the wish idea represented in the quotation. Finer observation reduces somewhat. I think I should avoid this because this is a very small, written in very small font. I don't know what was that, so I'm just avoiding that. Okay, next page. The origin must be construed in the following manner. The speaker deplored the fact that the present generation of his people was being deprived of its rights, and like Dido, he presaged that a new generation would take upon itself vengeance against the oppressors. He therefore expressed the wish for posterity. In this movement he was interrupted by the contradictory thought, "Do you really wish so much for posterity? That is not true. Just think in what a predicament you would be if you should now receive the information that you must expect posterity from the quarter you have in mind. No, you want no posterity as much as you need it for your vengeance." This contradiction asserts itself just as in the example Sanaroli by forming an outer association between one of his ideation elements and an element of the repressed wish, but here it is brought about in a most strained manner through what seems an artificial detour of associations. Another important agreement with the example Sanaroli results from the fact that the contradiction originates from repressed sources and emanates from thoughts which would cause a deviation of attention. So much for the diversity and the inner relationship of both paradigms of the forgetting of names. We have learned to know second mechanism of forgetting, namely the disturbance of thought through an inner contradiction seen from the repression. In the course of this discussion we shall repeatedly meet with this process which seems to me to be the more easily understood.